bipartisan committee to elect David Collingwood as our next supervisor. Before I say much else, I just want to remind you there is apple cider and ginger snaps and water in the back, and we have all kinds of literature. And I also want to thank Fred Dice-Road for his great pictorial representation of the way the township is right now. Oh, I love that. So, our group was formed in response to the discovery that Mr. Duval was taking taxpayer money to cover a $45,000 plus health benefit for himself. And let's see, that was his personal thing for he and his wife, and he had been doing it for almost 18 years for he and his wife, and it was hiding under employee expenses, not under supervisor expenses or anything like that. So in spite of being approached by people to explain why it was unethical, he was indignant and he refused to give it up. We responded by finding our own candidate to run, one who wouldn't take health insurance. We were lucky to get David Collingwood to agree to run. He is a 34-year resident of West Rock Hill Township, a former executive of Merck Company. He is about a 14-year member of the Conservation Committee, at least 16 members of the Historical Society, and he's been part of the shredder and recycling events for several years. He also, in 2016, was awarded the residential plaque for volunteer service, and that's on display in the township building. David's going to tell us a little more about his candidates. We'll go through some questions that people have written down, and if you have any as I go by and you want them read by me, that's fine. If not, you can raise your hand or do whatever. Let's see. So, like I said, if your questions aren't addressed by anything that's read off in the next card, please speak up. It's informal that way. David Collingwood.
I believe a chicken in every pot, and I think this world needs a better made Weizen cigar. Good evening, I'm David Collingwood and welcome, and I appreciate you being here this evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I'm in the back because we do have this, but I prefer not to use it. I want to represent you as a West Rock Hill supervisor. I have a lot to cover this evening and plan to use notes to ensure I don't miss anything I feel important to your decision-making process. I'd like to keep this informal. As Regina has said, there's refreshments in the back. Feel free at any time to go back and help yourself. Sorry, Fred. First, I'd like to identify and thank my bipartisan campaign committee members. They've worked tirelessly since February on this campaign. Regina Schreimeyer, Karina Rilling, Vera Cole, Frank Simondera, Michael Schreimeyer, Bob Strobel, Carol Strobel, and Fred Dice-Road. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank the Mary Wildman and the church for providing this venue for this evening. Now, why am I running for supervisor? In the fall of 2018, when the 2019 budget was produced as a proposed budget, I was looking at it because it was in the local newspaper and it was on the township's website. And as I looked at it, I saw this huge number for employee health benefits, like $297,000. And I thought to myself, you know, you got two people working in the maintenance building. We have a township manager, we have a clerk, and we have a secretary who in 2018 in the fall had submitted her resignation because she was retiring in the first quarter of 2019. And I thought, how could we have $300,000 for employee health benefits for 4 employees? So I couldn't find any information from the newspapers, and I couldn't drill down any further on the township township website to get to where these numbers, what they represented. So at a township meeting, I asked, why is this number so big? And my opponent, Don DeVal, said in a public meeting, we don't pay our employees a lot of money, so we like to give them the best health care policy we can, a Cadillac. We take care of our employees. He didn't say, I'm taking advantage of it as well. So, Freedom of Information Act, right to know, submitted to the township, and there it was. Employee health benefits, 3 supervisors. And the person who most blatantly offended or took advantage of the health care benefits provided by you, the taxpayers, is Don DeVal. Followed very closely by Jay Kaiser. Distantly followed by Jim Miller. And I will tell you tonight, Jim Miller proactively has gone out on his own and restructured his health care insurance for himself, his wife, and his daughter to have as minimal impact on your tax dollars as possible. And it's a shame the other 2 supervisors haven't followed suit. And that brings us to where we are this evening. Now, my opponent was my next door neighbor for 22 years. We shared shovels, rakes, tractors, and lawnmowers. And I considered Don a friend of mine then. I consider Don a friend of mine now. I'm not so sure what he thinks of me right now. But I did tell him, Don, don't take this personally. This has nothing to do with our friendship. This has to do with abuse of the taxpayers' dollars. So we formed a committee. We sat down with Don. We spent hours talking to him about healthcare costs. And I said to Don, you know, Don, we both work for major corporations. We're both retired. We're both on Medicare Part A and Part B. How is it that this little part, this Medigap thing, how is it it's costing the taxpayers $45,000 in 2019 for your insurance? I don't pay anything anywhere close to that. I never did get what I considered to be an adequate response from Don. In fact, tone deaf is probably the best representation of his answer. So, nothing we could say that would convince Don that while legal, using thousands of your taxpayers' dollars for his health care insurance, his wife's health care insurance, and their dental insurance, nothing we could say would convince him that it was not in the best interest of the township or the taxpayers. So, up until this incident, I never had any aspirations to be a supervisor at all. It was the furthest thing from the top of my to-do list. So we had a group of people, and we went out and we started talking to residents that we thought would be viable candidates for supervisor who could oppose Don and not abuse the health care insurance, taxpayers' dollars for health care insurance. And everybody has soccer, and everybody has a life, and everybody's too busy, and we talked to Democrats, we talked to Republicans, nobody would step up. So must have been my calling. It's born of frustration. When I told my son, his only comment was, what were you thinking? So with that, I'm going to talk about 7 issues that I consider to be something that need to be addressed in this township with this election. Now, I've gone door to door for the last 2 weeks. And I can tell you from a personal experience, a lot of people don't know about this healthcare abuse that's going on in this township. A lot of people don't know it, and we've got to get that word out. So if you have friends, neighbors, if you need information that's on that table over there, please pick it up after this meeting and let's get the word out. It's the big deal for this election. So, as I said, a lot of people don't realize that in 2019, a budget that Don DeVal approved in 2018 is providing him with close to $45,000 worth of health care insurance at your expense. Next year, it's estimated to be as much as $50,000. And we do know that since 2014, it's been $200,000 that's been used by Don alone for his health care needs, again, for his wife, himself, and dental. And in the 18 years that he's been supervisor, we guesstimated to be, and I say guesstimate, we're going on the conservative level here, about $360,000. So that's what, $250,000 plus. And not a lot of people know that. And I guess the question I have is, if Don is reelected, will he change his stripes? Is he going to change what he's doing as far as abusing health care for the next 6 years until he's 90 years old? I don't think so. And that's why we need a change on November 5th. Now, it's important to understand that this is not a health care lie. And Don has claimed that what we're talking about tonight is a health care lie. This information that I've given you tonight is public, it's fact. We filled out the right to know request from the township, and this is where we got the information. We're not making up these figures. So, as I said, I did an in-depth review of the budget for 2019, and it revealed that my opponent's taxpayer-funded health care costs were hidden under employee health benefits, and had been for years and years and years. Who knew? But Don was approving those budgets. That's like the fox watching the hen house. That said, my opponent is a public servant. He's not a township employee. And I'd like to remind the people that are here this evening that there's a lot of folks in West Rock Hill Township who are living on $45,000 to $50,000 a year. And the starting salary for Penn Ridge Regional Police Officer in 2019 is $57,000 a year. Think about that. And finally, and this has been brought up by my opponent, my concerns and my questions are not a violation of his HIPAA rights. Because we are not asking, I am not questioning his personal health issues or anything related to his health information. The only thing I'm questioning is the use of your tax dollars for his health care. That's it. How are we spending the money? And that is not a violation of his HIPAA rights. And one more thing. If I'm elected, I will take my salary as a supervisor of $2,500. If elected, I will not request nor accept one dime from the township coffers for my health care insurance. Now, so the health care is the big issue, but we have other issues as well. The Senior Center, also known as the Penn Ridge Community Center. The original funding for the Senior Center was from a $40,000 community development block grant from West Rock Hill Township, which was used for the community center back in 2000. Since then, there's been a line item in every single township budget of X number of dollars every year going to the Senior Center. But every year, a person from the senior center has to come to the township building and basically beg for that money to be released. Starting in the spring of the year, the money is held onto, and maybe by the end of the year, they acquiesce and they say, fine, here's the money. Now, in 2018, my opponent voted to decrease spending money for the senior center. And just recently, they had a flood and they had a lot of damage done, and again, someone showed up and had to beg the township, please, give us some money so we can get this building fixed, so we can get it open again for the seniors. I'm a member of the senior center. And as I started to say a few seconds ago, I am supporting increasing funding to the senior center, and if I'm elected, I'll take my salary, my $2,500, and I will donate it to the senior center. Another issue is videotaping of Board of Supervisor meetings. I've long been a proponent of this. It will provide documented, and this is the important thing, unedited record of the proceedings, as opposed to some of the edited versions my opponent's supporters sometimes put out there, and they selectively choose what's there, what you can see it, and even who can see it, because sometimes I can't even look at it. If we put these recordings on the township website, they'll be there for everyone to view. And if anyone is housebound for any reason, if it's age, if it's the weather, if it's health, they can watch them at their leisure, and they can see the actual full meeting. My opponent does not support this taxpayer convenience. He said that in public. I fully support videotaping the Board of Supervisors meetings, and this will not require a tax increase. Security cameras. This is a big one. I would work closely with the township to install security cameras throughout the building. There's too many times during the day that we have our township staff, our tax collector, our clerks, our secretaries, alone in the building. You have no idea, they have no idea who's coming through the front door or what their motives are. It's a public building, and our local police fully endorse putting security cameras in this public building. My opponent publicly has stated he does not endorse this taxpayer safety measure. And this will not require an increase in taxes. James Park. I fully support improvements to our township park, funded by the township. And I say this because not through loans the Park and Rec has previously done when they wanted to do improvements to the top lot. That was embarrassing. And again, this will not require an increase in taxes. Our regional police force. Our regional police force is excellent, and they cover one of the largest areas, square miles, in the Tri-County area. I go to the police commission meetings. I fully endorse the proposed 2020 budget for the police department, and it includes the purchase of a new vehicle as part of the annual replacement rotation. And this is important because recently we had a car, an older car, maybe 180,000 miles on it, beat to death, that had a bad catalytic converter. It was taken out of service to be fixed. That same day, we had another police car in a fender bender, just a minor one, but now we have two cars out of service. If we have a new police car every year that we can get rid of an older one from 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, we're always going to have a fleet of cars ready to go when they're needed. So I fully support that budget. It would also help to reduce the reserve at the police commission down to $150,000, which is what they're targeting to do, because right now it's upwards of $200,000. And when somebody came in tonight, they were talking about the holiday house pool. We have residents who routinely and tirelessly work without compensation through the spring and the summer to prepare this facility for public enjoyment. And I think as a township, we should do our fair share to support that pool. Therefore, I would, if elected, work to restore increased matching funds with Sellersville for the operation of this public venue. And that also would not require a tax increase. Some facts. I love these. My opponent recently voted no in a public meeting last month to a $10,000 renovation to make the West Rock Hill Township building ADA compliant and handicap accessible. This is the same person who voted yes to a budget that would get him $45,000 worth of health care insurance on the taxpayer's dime. Had my opponent's position been ratified, and thank goodness it wasn't, it could have placed the township in a very liable position, defending his vote, possibly costing the taxpayers thousands of dollars. My opponent refused to permit the Compassionate Care Garden in James Park, which memorializes children lost too soon, unless they first put up a $100,000 escrow account, in an escrow account. He even called the project morbid in a public meeting. However, he required no escrow money from the Little League for all the changes they made to James Park. And what I'm telling you now, this is public record, and if you go back and look at the minutes, you can actually see the votes that he did, yeas and nays for what I'm talking about this evening. My opponent also resisted expansion of the Moore property into usable athletic field using free dirt provided by the Turnpike expansion. Go figure. He has also displayed a total lack of transparency in forming a secret committee to discuss the compressor station. And in public, at a township meeting, he would not share the names of those on the committee or any information with residents, nor permit me to join the group, as I requested in that public meeting. I routinely submit a right-to-know request after every Board of Supervisors meeting, and by the way, there's one tomorrow night, for monthly bills paid. This is the taxpayers' money. I think they should know where their money is going, what it's being spent on. I don't think that they should have to pay, to fill out a right-to-know request to see this. I think this should be part of the consent agreement, and it should be put online for the public to view prior to each Board of Supervisors meeting, as are all the other parts of the consent agreement. And lastly, I attend no less than 6 township meetings per month. I mean, I go to the Planning Commission, the Conservation Committee meeting, of which I'm a part, the Park and Rec, Police Commission, Historical Society, which I die for, Board of Supervisors meetings, and yeah, I even go to Get Fit with Duck on Thursday nights, which was one of Jim Miller's great ideas. So in closing, I want to stress that this election in West Rock Hill Township directly affects you and how your tax dollars are spent. This is not a referendum on national politics. Regardless of what you think about what's going on in Washington, whether it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, this is your tax dollars. And you can control if they're going to be spent on supervisor healthcare costs, or if the money's going to go back into the township for fixing roads or infrastructure. You can control it at this level. And I've said many times this evening that this will not require a tax increase. Well, if we take $45,000 to $50,000, or the $90,000 that collectively is being used by supervisors for health care insurance, and we put that money back in the general fund, it will become usable as revenue to the township. It's that simple. So I will now entertain some questions. Before I go, I would say one thing. I've tried to give you complete and honest answers. I may not be privy to information considered confidential in nature, or information that has not yet been publicly shared by the sitting supervisors. So with that, we'll go to questions. And thank you for coming out. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Paul Reisner, Lawn Avenue. Yeah, formal meeting here. Yes, I agree 150% with everything you just said.
Thank you.
And you're right on target. The only thing I would like to do now, my bugaboo, is widen the scope a little bit on your thoughts on, and I know this is a sensitive subject with people in the room, is the open space issue. To me, we are spending over $1 million, we've got a bond, we're paying $80,000 to $100,000 a year in interest, you know, which is, to me, is absolutely silly. I wouldn't go out and borrow like $1 million and for a piece of property and then pay $80,000. What's happening to the township, in my view, and I've been here 45 years, is we're turning into a pass-through. Every road that we have, people are using it now like crazy because they enjoy the ride. I know it sounds nuts, but I actually talk to some people, because my street's so busy, they stop every so often. But what I'm saying to you is I just think, I love open space, but I think it should happen naturally. And then the last thing on open space is transparency. It drives me insane. Every time I go to a meeting, we had a private meeting. Now after the meeting's over, we're having another private meeting. Well, you know what it's about. Why can't this come out in the open on this property that they're getting? You know, it's like, there's no transparency, you know. So my issue is, I think that needs to have another look. I don't say stop it, but let's control it until we get some more infrastructure. We're not keeping up with the infrastructure side.
Let me respond, and thank you. I agree that when they say we're going to have an executive meeting and we're going to talk about real estate and we're talking about personnel, that's all they ever say. Really, is that what really goes on behind closed doors? I will take your concerns back to the Conservation Committee. We meet bi-monthly now, we used to meet monthly. I would say this though, sometimes if a property is being considered for conservation, we really can't talk about it in public because perhaps that piece of property, someone considers selling it. If someone knows that it's going to be conserved, they may jump at the chance to buy it to make a quick buck because they know it's going to, for some reason, it could be more valuable property if it's conserved. So we try to protect the homeowners and the property owner until the final decision has been made by the board, and then you do publicly announce it at a meeting. But I agree with you. I see what your frustration is, and I will take it back.
I mean, I have a problem now with open space. The township owns it and they won't deal with it with me in an instant, which drives me crazy. They wanted this open space. I like it, but if you have a problem, there's nobody doing any maintenance on our open space. Drive around and look at it. The trees are crumbling. I asked Don Duvall about why don't they forest that mountain that's been sitting there on Zimba's property for years and they don't go in. He told me, we can't get enough money for it. I don't care.
They pay you.
$2,000 it's worth.
You know they pay you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll give you the money,
Yeah.
not you pay them.
So,
I can talk
just,
specifically to that property. The people, the Simbas, when they made that deal with the township to preserve that property, they stipulated, and that's deed restricted, they stipulated that the front portion of that property could be used, one portion could be used for recreation, another portion could be used for farming, and I think the portion behind the house, they actually stipulated, if you want this property, township, that has to be preserved as it is, and you can't touch it. I mean, I think the townships, their hands might be tied behind their back on that particular part. I don't know that it has to do with money.
well, the National Forest Committee, I looked it up, they say all forests should be logged every 7 to 8 years to keep it healthy.
Well, I can tell you that that file on the Zimmer property, you can look at it, you fill out a right to know request, you can open the file and sit there and spend time, and you can go right through it, and perhaps that'll help you, understand, or what some of your questions are.
I can actually help in that. It's not clear cutting Zimba's field. What he's talking about is staying out the bigger potential.
Right,
So
canopy
basically,
trees,
that,
I understand that.
what Zimba put in plan 30 years ago is for clear cutting, not, what he's talking about is getting rid of the old wood, and the bigger potential wood. They can come in there and clear out some of the wood. I mean, that's, I remember when Zimba sold that and what that was entailed. There is a three-part to it, you're absolutely right. The one major one they want to keep was the farming. I know that. But
It's beautiful, I've been back there,
Yeah.
there's a lot of tree stands, a lot of deer hunters must be.
I mean, I'm gonna add one to his, and I think now that we purchased Catch Basin Road, I think they should also do the same thing there. I think, since we took this from Sellersville, I think that we need to clean that up. Because one, I think that's a huge liability, having that water plant there and having an open pit in the back, and we have teenagers that go out and like drink and do everything else. Somebody's gonna fall in that pit, somebody's gonna drown, and it's gonna be West Rock Hill's problem now instead of Sellersville's. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I mean, I work for a water and sewer company, and I'm telling you that kids get into anything they can get into.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's,
Thank you.
yeah.
Frank? You don't have to give your name.
Or your address.
How informal are you, Frank?
Couple things. Going back on the Zimba property, does anybody know there's a silo on that property?
Yep.
Way in the back.
Way in the back.
Where the airplane hangar was.
I've been asking, clear the trees out. Maybe put a plaque up if people can see. I don't know whether it's the last historical silo in the Bucks County area. But it's going to hell right now because we got trees. When we took over that property, the trees were about 10 foot high. Now they're 30 foot high, and you can just about see it. But of course, I got a lot of things to talk about all the time.
Well, keep going, Frank.
Everything this man said to you today is honest.
Thank you.
I sat on the Holiday House Pool Commission. And Sellersville offered, I'm gonna say, it has to go back maybe now 10, even more years ago, to go at $25,000 a year. I see Mrs. Markley here. I worked with her husband, Jeff, trying to get us to go for $25,000 a year. It was pulling teeth to get $13,000 from the Don DeVal-led supervisors. We still only give $13,000. The other part of that was ridiculous, we had to send somebody out to get educated to be a water